Ladies, welcome to this video. Coach Jerry here, and Christmas is coming. We're just a few days away, and therefore I feel like it's the right time for me to go live on the session number 3 of the holiday challenge. Okay, it's important that you have all the tools possible at your disposal before we get into Christmas, so you get to apply some of these concepts, as well as really understand kind of like the frame of mind I want you to go inside this holiday. Now, if you haven't watched the previous training, I really urge you to go back, hop in this group. You're gonna find I would have tagged everybody in the first Zoom call that we have. If you're new in the group, just came in maybe today or yesterday, I can still tag you in there if you want. But you would find it, obviously you also go on the guides and you would find a specific folder which says mini challenges, and there is kind of like, if you want to go back and do the challenge from scratch, that's actually important. But to recap, it was pretty simple what we did. Okay, we talked about really this idea that most of the people, they gain weight during the holiday time, and they have a hard time losing, simply because, not because that we eat bad food or good food, is because we just eat more than normal, and most of the time not being mindful of what happened. And therefore, when we know that there is 2 phases of weight loss, right? At least 2 phases, and it's not just what they tell you that it is. Basically, it's like most weight industry tells you you just need to go a diet and you're going to lose weight. And given the fact that your body is ready to lose weight, which we established that most of ladies, especially under 40, aren't, right? Given the fact that you were, there is still a phase of kind of like undoing, kind of like reversing weight gain and then weight loss, right? When we are inside the holiday, we really working on basically reversing weight gain. And we know that to reverse weight gain, the concept we established in the first call, we need about 20 days of doing a sustainable deficit of calorie, which would be somewhere around 500 calories. This is why it's so hard, because obviously it's becoming really hard to sustain anything for longer than a week. And this is a problem, because that creates this lack of perception of success, and obviously you feel like what you're doing is not working, right? So go back and watch that first. The second day we talked about the importance of understanding the metrics, the importance of not getting conditioned to the weight on the scale, because we know that they fluctuate, especially in women. It can change up to 2 or 3 times in a day, and then multiple times a week, and therefore you might weigh yourself when you gain some weight, but it might be a little bit of water, and so like it doesn't mean that necessarily you are gaining any fat. Also, it doesn't mean that if you're losing weight, you're necessarily losing fat, right? So it's important for you to be very clear on what happened. Today, we're going to talk about what to eat and how to come in this idea of the holiday. There are going to be those 2, depending on your culture, depending on where you're based, depending where you celebrate. I know some people already celebrating Christmas. I know that some people already celebrating New Year's. So depending where you're watching from, and how many days do you really call it party or eat more or eat a lot, I would say I would be safe and say that if you are really a little bit mindful of what you're doing, you shouldn't be having more than 3, 4 to maximum 5 days that you cannot control on these holidays. This is why, if you are very mindful of what you're doing, if you have some context, if you have some awareness around food, you should not be undoing all the work that you did throughout a whole year in just the holiday. But yet it's important to understand what's going on. So I wish I was here being able to tell you, okay, eat this or don't eat that. That wouldn't serve you, because obviously we have, again, multiple culture. We have, even in just European culture alone, depending on the country, you would have a bunch of different food that you're eating. So today I'm going to give you some frameworks, some principles that if you do kind of like take that and use those, you will be able to have this holiday without a 12,000 calorie, cheat meals that usually people has, which usually mean that you're gaining about 1.5 kilo or 3 pounds of fat, right? So I'm gonna, kind of like show you how you can make those 12,000 probably, even turn it down to about 6, 7, or maximum 8,000, right? So obviously there is something that you must understand, like you must, be aware that you will need to sacrifice something. Like, it's not about not enjoying the holiday, it's not about being orthorexic with food, it's not about, being in a position of saying, to your family, I don't want to eat or whatever. But you do need, like anything in life, to sacrifice something. Like, it's not like you can just, you know you know how do they say, have the cake and eat it too, meaning like you cannot just do whatever you want and then like pretend that nothing happened. In any decision there is a consequence, and this is kind of like what you need to come in. Yet I'm very aware of what I'm saying, and that you can still fully enjoy holiday. When most of you came into this group saying, like, maybe sometimes from some ads, from advertisement that you saw, and one of the head was, how you can lose up to 5 kilos, right, in about maybe like a month, eating pizza and drinking wine, right? That was one of the things. This is 100% real. There is nothing misleading, there is nothing unreal, there is not unrealistic on my claim, because you can still eat pizza, you can still have desserts, you can still have the real dessert, but also you can have healthier version of this kind of dessert, as long as you hit a calorie target, as long as you're sure what you're doing, as long as you understand the timing of that, as long as you are exercising and moving enough, right? And get to eat those things in specific time, and don't go overboard with your calorie. That's very realistic. In fact, the opposite way around, meaning like restricting food, going into diets, this is what creates metabolic conditions in the first place. This is what creates most people struggling with hormones such as thyroid, such as insulin, such as cortisol. All these stress-related hormones are basically sometimes conditioned to be overproduced from dieting and restriction. Therefore, at times, most of the time, as long as you are mindful of what you're doing, you would be able to get results while eating food you love. That's what that tells us, is that you really can go Christmas, maybe Christmas Eve or Christmas Day off, or like New Year's Eve, and whatever the case is, and have really the food that you want, as long as you understand what you're doing. And the first week, the first session that I did talk about that. I talk about, as long as you understanding that's what's going on, is going to take about 20 days. Let's not take 20 days to undo the problem. Let's go in with intention, and let's not overeat. Let's be smart around food, right? And again, it starts from not being obsessive or orthorexic with food, meaning like, when they offer you some cookies or whatever, Christmas cookie or whatever, like you guys eat for Christmas, like, you do not need to be, oh, I cannot have them on a diet. That's kind of ridiculous, because that what that means. That usually means that the first thing you're eating, even if you don't eat it that day, when you go home, you're gonna eat cookies, right? Again, so you need to be smart and intentful, but like you need to be intentional of what you're doing. With this being said, I want to share my screen, and I want to give you some perspective. Most people say I'm eating healthy, and that means I'm eating low in calorie. That means I'm losing weight. Nothing more wrong than that. Okay, this is kind of like been proven right now, and most of the time, even professional claim that when you are not losing weight is because you have a metabolic condition or a metabolic weight plateau, whatever the case is. And most of the time is because people underreport calorie, because they feel like they are not doing, like they feel like they're eating that much, and then they're eating much more, so whatever they think is not what it happens. Or they feel like they're eating healthy, right? And therefore they keep eating, snacking here, snacking there, a little bit like fruit here, a vegetable there, a bunch of nuts there, a square of chocolate there, like, and before you basically ate for 500 calories. You could have had like a full wrap of with protein, like whatever, like something much more filling and more substantial for the half of those calories. So like, you really need to get clear and aware of what's happening first. And the other one, it can be that you really forget to factor the oil, for example, that you put on the salad, or you forget whatever you drank, maybe soda or whatever, juices, which my favorite is the organic juices, right? And then like they really healthy, but they have something like maybe like 50 grams of sugar in there. Another favorite is like forgetting what the bad that you ate, like you simply forget that you had like a cheat meal, you didn't remember that, yet you only remember the healthy stuff that you had, right? So I want to share my screen because I want to give you some perspective when it comes to this thing, what I'm saying. And again, we're going to take a very extreme example. But when I saw it, I said, I want to make a post about this because this is actually pretty crazy, right? You go inside this group, and I made this yesterday, and you go here and you see this is actually pretty cool, right? Clean eating versus, we'll call it dirty eating, right? Forbidden food, the existence of food that makes you fat, right? We all know McDonald's. This is why I wanted to use this example. And this is funny because when you have a breakfast at McDonald's, it's about 28 gram of protein, 40 gram of carbs, 28 gram of fat. And the best part is like 500 something calorie, which is something that is actually very reasonable, right? To eat something very, very palatable and so fulfilling like that is very reasonable. If you ate a steak and maybe like a bowl of rice, let's make it really boring. Let's say a steak with a bowl of rice. Of course, it would be probably the same 500 calorie, maybe a little less, and obviously it would be much healthier. Like you would probably feel different. You would probably have a different energy than McDonald's. But when you go on the not on the scale but on the fat loss, because the scale could say different things, you would have the same. Crazy or not, like you would have the same. Now, what happened when you say I'm gonna do clean eating? And this is crazy because on top of being clean eating, organic, it costs like 3 times as much, and like this stuff doesn't make you feel better. Like it's not like it's give you like you eat those things like this, like I said, 174 calorie of juice, 800 something calorie of breakfast, meaning like a bunch of seeds, a bunch of like all this crazy stuff, which obviously not granola or chia seed and like all this so elaborate stuff that everybody pretends that they have some magical properties, right? Like they have some magical property, and like they show you a bunch of research only to never tell you what the research really says. And the research will not say that these foods melt off fat. It will not say that this food is better than any other food for losing weight. And finally, the funny part is that if that's not better to lose weight, when we talk about healthy, like the healthier thing you can do is being a low fat percentage according to where you want to go. That's healthy. We also know that if you were a low fat percentage, it will highly impact your confidence. You will probably feel much better about yourself, impacting positively your relationship. Therefore, when people say clean eating, let hope then when you actually fall for this, when you actually take the left versus the right for triple the calorie of double, let's pretend you don't know this thing. Because if you did and you still get conditioned from what the messaging says, on top of you paying probably 3 times as much, you're not getting the results you want, okay? And I'm not saying you should go with McDonald's. I'm saying you should be aware of what's happened. There is no clean or good food. With this being said, what I want to do is the following. There are ways for you to be able to go into Christmas and having really the food that you want, having the cooking, having the dessert or whatever. Your day, you should virtually say, and again, I don't want you to track calories, but you should have an idea of what you want to do in the day. If the day is that you're going to have a big dinner, right? You probably going to eat something about 2, 3, maybe even 4,000 calories in the dinner if you have like 2 or 3 courses. So the day of, you might want to consider either skipping breakfast or having a very light protein-based meal, like a shake, for example, or a Greek yogurt or something of that nature, and maybe another snack for lunch, and really try to save, if you want to call it, save calories for dinner. That's one way to see it. I also need you to be very aware of what's happening inside your body. If you're a person that struggle with hunger, and if you are simply cutting off meals, then like you're gonna overeat because you're really hungry, because you cannot, like, you might be very cortisol sensitive, meaning like as long as you're doing fasting or something of that nature, even just for a few hours, you're gonna hit the whole cow in the dinner. Chances are that's not a good strategy. You might want to use, again, you probably want to use protein based, fruit based, and vegetable based meals, maybe multiple times a day, which they're gonna probably adds up to probably maximum 500 to 700 calories, and therefore you have all the calories that you need in dinner. This is one way to see it. And again, like I want you to really think that way. And as we share the screen again, you and again, I'm gonna write stuff down for you just so you have a sense. So you want to see it probably this way, right? Like you want to have. Let me just use this thing. Okay, cool. So what's gonna happen is you're going to basically, and why the hell is doing that? Why I cannot just have my thing here? Crazy. Why is doing that now? Okay, let's see if this. Let's refresh this and let's hope this is working now. So funny, they asked me to rate this app, and I was like, okay, let's see. Wow, that's really crazy. Okay, never mind. We'll have to do it differently. I cannot make this work anyway. Okay, so we established that. So the best way to do it is this one. Okay, be aware of how your body reacts. Also be aware of what food really is. It's always made of carb, fat, and protein, right? We know that carbs and protein, no matter what type of carb is, if it's sugar, table sugar, or if it's starches, has 4 calories, much like protein. Fat has 9, has like double, right? That means that even if you eat healthy food, one more time, nuts, avocado, dark chocolate, because it's not about regular chocolate, it's always about dark chocolate because it's healthy. You're basically eating double the calorie for usually the same amount. The problem is also that those things like nuts, avocado not doing much, but sometimes some version of chocolates, some version of seeds, or whatever the case, it's very easy to overeat and it's very hard to estimate. Meaning, like, unless you don't weigh 10 grams of it, you're gonna thinking that you're eating a little bit and you're eating a lot more than you're thinking, right? Also, they're not fulfilling, right? Like if you were to take a full watermelon and you probably take the same amount in nuts, chances are you would probably see a very huge difference in volume. Meaning, like eating the whole watermelon, it would take you forever, while probably eating 10 grams of nuts, you can put it down in like 10 seconds, right? So you want to be aware of that. So the meals before the day that you're eating, chances are you want to either skip one meal, or you want to really use protein, fruit, and vegetable based things. It could be liquid such as shakes. It could be, and again, when I'm saying liquid, I'm talking about protein shakes. I'm not saying drink a juice. That's nonsense. It's better to get like a whole fruit, and it's better to get vegetable, right? When you get also in the dinner, one thing that you want to master want to do is, number one, also prioritize fruit, vegetable as an appetizer, as well as protein, and then eat the tasty carbohydrates later, or the tasty fat and the tasty combo later. It's very important, because when you're filled already or full partially, your body is going to tend to undereat or eat less than you would be eating normally, right? That's also very, very important. Another thing that you want to do, and this is kind of like something that is logical, is that it's better that you make like a full meal, like a full dish, like you put up a bunch of stuff in the dish, and you're gonna have a sense of how much you're eating, kind of like having a sense of the calorie you're eating, versus I'm gonna snack this and then I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna snack here, because snacking left and right is the same concept on when you're snacking in general in life. Like you feel like you're eating little, and then when you factor everything, even if it's healthy food, snack here and snack there, you're eating a bunch of calories. Okay, so this is kind of like what you want to do. If you know that you cannot control that particular day, I'm saying you want to be controlling either the day before or the day after. If you ate very balanced foods, very balanced meals, day before and day after, as long as you're eating, that, let's say you are factoring your calorie, let's say you need to stay within 1500 calories. If you eat the whole day before, few days 1200 calories, the day after 1200 calories, allows you to have a day that you can eat 5000 calories, or 4000. It's common sense. I mean, the goal is not about losing weight inside the holiday. It would be nice, and it's definitely possible, but it's about making sure you at least not gaining weight. And how you do that, you go back to my video, and the thing that you go back to the same video that we talked about the weight, and we know that the weight is going to fluctuate, and obviously this week you should be taking like a median weight. But we know that if you ate a Christmas dinner, and the day after you have like 1 kilo up, and 1 kilo up even the day after, it's not going down, chances are you need to undo that day before that becomes chronic. And it's pretty simple. It's like you do one day, like I said, of eating less, or lowering your calorie and lowering your carb load, okay? Because we're gonna get rid of the water, and we're gonna know indeed if it's just water retention or if it's anything else that's going on. I hope this is helpful. Again, there are really tips important. Again, tip number one, you don't want to be orthorexic with food. Tip number two, you want to be aware of what you're eating. Fat is always going to do, the double calorie than you need. Tip number three, you want to find a framework according to your personality and also your physiology, meaning like if you are a person that can skip breakfast or lunch, you might do it. If not, you want to be really using more frequent meals, very low in calorie, vegetable, fruit, or protein, just to ensure that you are keeping your blood sugar stable, as well as you're not overeating on that particular time. And then you obviously eat inside the dinner. And that was the last one. Last but not least, use fulfilling food. Okay, you have like a whole section inside a guide when you see recipes here that you make very healthier version of pizza and stuff like that. Eat most times like that. Even if you are a person like me that likes food, that likes the sweet taste or the salty taste, like try to eat that way for most times in 80% of the time in the week, and 20% you can really do whatever you want. Hope this was helpful. Like I said, this only makes sense if you actually post, because just watching stuff and saying, okay, this applies to me or it doesn't apply, or yeah, it does apply, but I'm going to do that later. It really tells me, number one, you're not really an action taker. Number two, I have no idea if this coaching system would ever work for you, because at the end of the day, you need to do the work. And three, it also tells me that I'm not really sure whether or not you want to get a results, because like when you say I want to get something, understand that it's not about watching thing and consuming thing, even though everybody's telling you that. Everybody oh, you have to learn this, you have to learn that. When you hear something that makes sense, when you hear somebody that makes sense to you, like whatever the information makes sense, this person motivates you enough to actually take action. It's time to take action, okay? So therefore, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be perfection, but it does have to make sense, right? So just post your meals when you're doing holiday, post you and your family, post everything. Like it's actually pretty cool. It get this community going, as well as me being able to suggest stuff to you, or kind of like keep you up motivated and tell you exactly what to do maybe the day after if you had to hit like really a lot and so forth. Hopefully you enjoy this. This is Jerry here. I'm gonna get back at you in the next training, and I'm gonna talk to you soon.